Yerushalayim beis mikdashcha beis mikdashcha besimchas ha'olam ay la 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 bam 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 ay la 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 bam 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 Glad everyone's here. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so lucky to have another opportunity to learn, to jump into this parsha, and we have such a cool shir. We have such an amazing opportunity to continue realizing that Bamidbar is all about celebrating the book of mistakes. It's like another opportunity to go really deep into a very, very interesting parsha, a parsha which really is very hard to just say that you understood it because you heard it last year, because every year the character of Korach, he becomes more and more wondrous. Early this morning we were in shul. I have to, can I say it? I mean, I was laning this morning, Korach, and Ellie was standing next to me, and we were both. I was feeding off of you because I was reading like Kohen Aliyah. Ellie, oh my God, I can't believe it. Then the Levi Aliyah, and the more psukim, more and more. It's just astonishing. It's just so. The story is so wacky. It is so beyond wacky. It's such a powerful story. So we don't always have the opportunity that in one teaching we learn from a number of different tzaddikim. It's usually one concept based on, like, let's say, Reb Nachman, or one concept based on the Ish Kodesh, or one concept, Ishbitzer, yeah, basically on the Ishbitzer. But tonight we have a really powerful trio. Tonight's trio that we're going to be, the learning will be based on the Me'er Shilach, the Ishbitzer, Reb Leibel Eger, and Reb Mendel of Katz, all three in one. Not a simple thing at all. And so really tonight, I invite you all, and all the chaver that are learning with us online, and that will be learning with us afterwards, I invite you all to really try to zone out from anything that can get in the way of these words going right into the heart. I don't even want to say anything more. I want to pass around the transcript, the papers. It's bad. It's both sides. I really want to just jump right inside it tonight. And if you can just have patience with us, learn it. If you could just have patience with the text, to just do it sentence by sentence. There's some really powerful stuff going on here tonight. It's very, very special. Extremely special. Okay, let's go right inside. When it came to Parshas Korach, Reb Shlomo says, the Yismach Moshe. Yismach Moshe, does anyone ever hear the Yismach Moshe? The Yismach Moshe is with Reb Moshe Teitelbaum. He is the origins of Satmar. This is the origins of Satmar. The Heiligest first, Reb Moshe Yismach Moshe. He initially was not a Hasidic Yid, and his son-in-law actually turned him on to the Chozeh of Lublin, and he became a follower of the Chozeh of Lublin. Who, by the way, just as it all connects. The Chozeh of Lublin would start off every Parshas Korach, and he would start off every year, every Shabbos, by saying, Hey Legazeh de Korach. He's the Chozeh, he could see these things, right? He was a descendant from the line of Korach. And he would say, Hey Legazeh de Korach, my holy grandfather Korach. Holy? I mean, Korach's not exactly a yichus you want to be walking around with on a banner and say, hey, come and marry my daughter. We're Korachites. It's not something that you think is like something you really want to put out there in the public. But anyway, the Lubliner would say this every Shabbos. Korach. So here, look what he says. This is astonishing. This is crazy. When it came to Parshas Korach, the Yismach Moshe would say the following. In one of the previous times I was here in this world, I was one of the people who went out with Moshe in Egypt, from Egypt. And I was there when the fight was going on between Korach and Moshe. So that's pretty far out that anyone reports that, right? But now, check out what he says. I didn't mingle in because the craziest thing happened. I didn't know which side to be on. This is what he's saying. Korach was so holy that I mamish did not know if he was holier than Aaron. I simply didn't know. So I stayed neutral, he says. That's the Yismach Moshe's testimony of a previous Gilgul. Now, you have to understand, for the Yismach Moshe for him to say such words, he's not just telling you a story that happened. In those few sentences that he said, we have to rearrange our heads for a second, and just because we know what ends up happening to Korach, that he gets swallowed up by the earth, which is something that never happened, and it's very, very wild, that whole inyan of why it had to happen like that, and not just another form of death. That's a whole other thing which we won't get to tonight. Hopefully we'll have many more years to get into those things as well. But for him to say those words, it means that don't take this whole thing lightly. This was serious business. The Yismach Moshe, you have to understand, the big tzaddikim, the holy, righteous people, had a really hard time figuring out whose side to be on. Korach, we take, oh my God, chutzpah, Korach, 250 people come up and they got swallowed up pretty fast. This was messing with people's minds. Big time. And we see this throughout the course of Jewish history as well, where big neshamas are not so sure on which side of what seems to be we know aftermath, we know what happened. But lechatchila, if you were in the midst of it, you wouldn't be able to tell. Like he says, I didn't know whose side to be on. It was so holy. Korach was so holy that we couldn't figure out whose side to be on. Which just makes the whole thing even wackier, right? Now remember, friends, this is really important. The whole book of Bamidbar is that we are not talking about ordinary sinners. Remember, this is the piece we saw in the Meshilach, I think in the end of Parshas Nasa, when the Meshilach explains that this whole Sefer of Bamidbar is not just telling you stories about how people fall. It's telling you stories about how great, great people can fall. And why do we have to learn about great people that fall? Almost a whole Sefer in the 5 books of Moshe is dedicated for you and I to understand why is Hashem telling us about great people that are falling. Mamish kimat the whole Sefer. Every parsha, week by week. Now, look back inside. Remember, friends, the whole book of Bamidbar is that we're not talking about ordinary sinners. The whole book of Bamidbar is talking about holy people who somewhere up there went wrong. The sad thing is that when you get mixed up on a very holy and high level, it's the hardest thing to fix and get out of. See, like, to get messed up by someone that's a criminal, so you realize, oh my God, how come I didn't see it? And then you just move on. It's not such a great big mitzvah to like take yourself out of a really bad brainwash. And then you realize the person that you were brainwashed by wasn't holding anywhere. You were just blindsided, whatever. But when it comes to being so turned on to something that has such a spark of kedusha, that's when you really messed with your mind. You know, think of it in your own life about when were the times that were the most confusing. It wasn't when, oh yeah, I have such a taiva and I can't get out of it. That's not confusing. That's just a hard time to get out of. That's just a hard nisayon to work through. But what about, and we're seeing it in our world more and more and more and more, that people that think that they're connected to something holy, somewhere, someone up there on the top, not so, the geschäft is not so kosher, and then what happens? So take that confusion to the max when it comes to what it was doing to Bnei Yisrael when Korach says what he was saying. It was messing with people to the max. Because especially, not just was he holy, but the manner in which he expressed his claim couldn't have sounded more Rebbish in the world. Not rubbish, Rebbish, like a Rebbe. Couldn't have sounded more like a Heiliger Rebbe. Continue back inside. The sad thing is that when you get mixed up on a very holy and high level, it's the hardest thing to fix and get out of. Let me ask you, we're smack in the middle of this first paragraph. Let me ask you, are you failing grades in kindergarten? All kids in kindergarten go through kindergarten. But when is it that you begin to actually fail grades? The more you advance. The more kids drop out because it's getting higher. Understand what he said? No? Pasha, it's not such a crazy thing. It's everyone, my children are not going to be left behind, or they don't have to do any hashlamot. You don't have to take exams again. It's kindergarten. It's not such a, everyone, it's beautiful, it's sweet and holy, but there's no sense of, oh my God, if I don't do good, they're gonna hold me back, right? In high school, you can still get away with a lot. But in college, contrary to what many of you might have gone through, he says, you better be sharp. In college, you better be sharp already. When it comes to writing your PhD, you better write something good. Imagine you want to be a professor, and you write a book and you want people to read it. You better have something to say. So basically, what is he saying? The higher it gets, meaning the more you advance in life, the more real it has to be. Okay? Now, what is he talking about? Where are we in the Torah, in Jewish history? Where are we advancing towards in this Sefer, Eretz Yisrael? And it's an amazing thing what he just said, that the closer you get to going into Eretz Yisrael, the more you have to make sure you're on top of your game, because if not, you'll be left behind. Now, in Chassidut, and specifically in Ishbitz, there's a concept which I'm going to try not to I'm going to try not to explain too much in English, because it's really a word in Hebrew. And what's that word? What do you think that word would be? It's called birur. How do you say birur in English? Clarifying is levarer. That means, what's that?
Discriminating?
No. Chas v'chalila.
No, I don't mean discrimination. I mean discriminating.
Oh. Well, he used a word called sifting. Was that what you meant by this? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you meant. No, I'll tell you. Someone brought me this. I don't even know where it is. I think this joke in the house. My friend Stewie sent me a book. He found this book from a book written in 1967. It's this dark cover. It's called Negro and Jew, and it's written by Shlomo Katz. My name's on the cover. My friends are all laughing about it. I'm very sensitive when you say discrimination. I have to really make sure that I'm not. It's somewhere here. I'll show it to you. It's very funny. Anyway, back to what we're saying. Birur, sifting. Birur is sifting. Birur, he's saying the more you get closer, the more you're sifting through. You're doing a birur of like who could really stay here? Who's really shayach to this? Rabbi Shlomo has a beautiful, beautiful pshat as to why the Meraglim, why the whole story with the sins of the spies, that it didn't matter if we were forgiven or not. There was a huge birur. There was a huge sifting that had to happen after the sin of the Meraglim. Like, why was it that after the Chet HaEgel we sinned really bad with idolatry? We're forgiven. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up again. We get another Torah. Am Yisrael sins by crying and listening to the Chet of the Meraglim. And are we forgiven? Were we forgiven after the sin of the spies? Well, we were. We were. Something had to happen. There had to be a whole mechevra that had to be killed, just like after Chayta Egel, Mila Hashem Elai. But the Am Yisrael couldn't understand, wait a second, after the sin of the golden calf, you forgave us, and then you gave us another Torah. After the sin of the spies, you forgive us, so let's go to Eretz Yisrael. That's not what happens. You go for another 39 years walking through a desert. So Rabbi Shlomo says, why? There was a huge birur that had to happen in Am Yisrael, the sifting through the people. What had to happen? Why? Why does Rabbi Shlomo say he just wasn't forgotten on the level of, okay, just come into Eretz Yisrael? He says something so beautiful. We learned it a few times. He says, imagine that you're dating a woman and you're very, very close to getting married. In fact, you get engaged. And you've been spending so much time together and you're so close and you're so excited. And then the girl says to you, or it's probably the guy that would say to you, you know what, hold on a second, I'm not so sure about this. What do you mean? I need to figure things out again. I'm not really sure I want to marry you. And then a day or two later, you say, yeah, you know what, it's okay, let's do this. So you can't just get married, right? So the girl that hears this from the guy says, I don't think so. He's like, why? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I hurt you like this. But do you forgive me? I forgive you, but how can I marry you? Who cares if I forgive you? It's not something you do after. You can't get married after this. Yes, you have my mechila, you have my... But you don't just get married after. Do it because that's exactly what happened over here with Eretz Yisrael, which was the ultimate marriage. Saying, Rebbeinu Shalom was saying, you're going to cry now because you think that you don't want to come into Eretz Yisrael. But then you hear that it's really for you, so you say, okay, I'm ready to go in. It doesn't work like that. I forgive you, Hashem says, but right now I can't marry you. I have to go through a birur now. I have to go through this sifting. This happens in every single parsha. The sifting through, the birur, getting clear, clarity, going through what really isn't ready, and waiting for that which is ready, building up that which is ready. Now, we're on 5 lines from the bottom of this first paragraph. Since we Yidlach, you see those words? Since we Yidlach are operating on the highest, we in the world have the most trouble with God. You ever realize that? What nation has more trouble with God than us? Why is that? Look what he says. Because it has got to be real. And if it's not real, it's not only bad, but sometimes you can't move on. Now this is a very important statement. He's saying over here, with us Yidden, we're constantly in the motion of always going closer, of always elevating, of always being in gradual movement towards the Ribono Shel Olam. Birurim, sifting through, is constantly taking place, all the time, with people that are mamish close. We're always very close. That's why it hurts that much, what we go through as a people with our relationship to the Ribono Shel Olam. Because we haven't been in kindergarten for a long time. We're all up there in PhD, I don't know whatever you want to call it, but we're always, as a people, we're so much always trying to understand Ribono Shel Olam. Why does it hurt to be so close to you? You ever ask yourself that question? It's supposed to feel really good to be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why is it sometimes that you ask, man, to be close to you is not simple. It's not like a chill vibe. It's a really intense relationship. It's a really intense thing just to be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not a simple thing. Why? Because there's a constant birur going on between us and the Ribono Shel Olam. Always. And the closer you get to Eretz Yisrael, like in Bamidbar, just like the closer we're getting to Mashiach coming, it's going to be that more intense. Because there's going to be less and less room for what doesn't belong in the relationship. That's how it is. The closer you're getting to the Ribono Shel Olam, to that state of mamish v'ani tefillah, I am just this walking prayer, it's going to get more and more intense. And if it's not more and more intense, it means that you're not really going anywhere. And that you're carrying around a lot of psalat with you that maybe is holding you back and you don't even realize it. Now, so in a certain way, as a people going through the desert, we're going from grade to grade. And every grade goes through more and more birurim. That's what's happening in Sefer Bamidbar, but that's what's happening with you and I today. Mamish today. And think about it. This is what's happening to us. You know, you think, oh, I'm learning more Torah, I'm davening more, I'm involved more in Yiddishkeit, I'm more connected than I was. It's supposed to be pain-free, no? It's supposed to be, isn't it supposed to feel more chill now? Everything's supposed to be more good because I did the from thing. It comes on so much harder. So much harder. So this is a Torah, what we're going to be doing tonight. You have to hold on to tonight's teaching, especially when you admit to the fact that you are involved in a relationship with God. And it's ongoing, and it's deep, and it's intense, and it comes on so strong. Tonight we're going to see how to get through that, so that we don't be part of that sifting that gets left behind. Like a whole generation in the desert. A whole generation was sifted out. The whole generation was discriminated. Did I use it right? So a whole generation was...
Now that I hear you talk,
oh, so what would you say it is now?
I don't know.
Okay. So what does discriminating mean?
I thought, like, the varer is to discriminate between this and this, which works for you and which doesn't work for you.
Okay, so don't throw that explanation out just yet, because I think we're actually going to use it soon. You'll tell me. And here I want you to open your hearts. Reb Leibele says, now remember, Reb Leibele, Eger, is the grandson of Rabbi Akiva Eger, and he's the son of Rabbi Shlomo Eger, and he becomes a chassid, he becomes a Talmid Chaver of the Kotzker and of the Ishbitzer, okay? Reb Leibele Eger says something unbelievable. It's not so hard to differentiate between good and evil. When I can see that something is bad and something else is good, I don't have to be such a holy genius to make the right decision. But, like we said in the beginning of the shir, to differentiate between holy and holier is the deepest thing in the world. The world always talks about good and evil. Korach is not about good and evil. Now, obviously, you can't give this over to children learning about Korach. So as children, we know that Korach is who? The guy that gets swallowed up because he's a big, has a lot of chutzpah. The whole story of Korach is about holy and holier, meaning it's the tension between holy and holy of holiest. Remember, what was Korach's whole thing? Is that he was holy, but that on the outside, what did it seem like he wanted? What? Holier, more. It's got to be more. Remember, this is a crazy thing that Shlomo said once. I remember him saying this, that just like there's a Kohen Gadol, which was Aaron a Kohen, there was a concept called a Levi Gadol, and it could have been Korach, but Korach wouldn't have been happy with that, and it was taken. The concept was taken away. Now, I would say, why wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu the Levi Gadol? He's bichlal bigger than these concepts, Moshe Rabbeinu. He's not lo kan b'Yisrael ke Moshe. He's not even in this whole geschäft of Levi Gadol. But Korach was going to be, he would have been the Levi Gadol. It was taken away from him. The concept was taken away from the world. So look in the next look what he says over here. When it comes to the tribe of Levi, it's so hard to understand. Because why? Korach from Levi, and the pasuk in the beginning tells us right away what his yichus is from. The first pasuk in our parasha lets us know he's mamish from Levi. The tribe of Levi never did anything wrong. When it came to the golden calf, the Levim didn't participate. By the way, there's one more thing that I heard, that when it came also to Avdus in Mitzrayim, to slavery, the Levim were not slaves. They were part of the nation that were slaves, but they themselves were not the people working with bricks and going through all that torture. they've been kind of separated on a certain level from the beginning. They've been mufrash, they've been different. I don't want to get into that right now, I just want to put it out there. But one time here, the most horrible thing happens. The earth swallows up people from the tribe of Levi. It's such a weird thing. The Levim, that are always so holy and so menschlichkeit, and so like always makpi to make sure they do the right thing, they have one really bad thing that goes on amongst them. But tiftacha aret adamat pia, earth opens up its mouth, that's what the Torah actually says, and swallows it up. So it must have been that what they did wasn't just like, they fell like everyone else fell. There was something really, really wrong in the manner which they fell. For the earth to have opened up their mouth and swallowed them. Korach va'adato. Okay, turn the page. Oh, sorry. Not yet. Sorry, last paragraph. Sorry, Web Yeshiva students, we're getting you back on the bottom. To sift your way through this birur is the deepest refining of character. So this is what he's saying over here. For us, Chavre, forget the text for a second and give me all your attention just for 1 minute. Okay? Reb Shlomo just said to sift your way through this birur, which is taking place between who was right, Korach or Aaron, is the deepest refining of character. If you can make your way through seeing what was really wrong with Korach, you're going to grab onto mamish emes. Emes lamita. We have a chance through understanding Korach and understanding what he was really saying and the problem with what he was really saying. We're going to see something from the Katz soon. We have a chance to truly not just go through a parsha with a nice vort for the Shabbos table, which never happens here anyway, but even more than that, we have a chance of actually really polishing certain inyanim that we have to really, really polish and make sure that it's refined in our characteristic traits. It's not okay. It's not Sfiras HaOmer is over, so now I don't have to work on my midos. It's that I worked enough on myself in Sfiras HaOmer that now I can even go further and deeper, especially after Shavuos that I received the Torah. So again, to sift your way through this birur, through this sifting of character between what was Korach, what was Moshe, is the deepest refining of character. How do you know what the emes la'amita is in a situation like this? How do you know? Now again, what does it mean in a situation like this? Have you ever been in a situation where you've seen machlokes amongst tzaddikim? Have you ever seen this? How'd you know where to hold on to? No one held on to anything?
Say l'charav, you go with the one that who's being your around.
Yeah, but it's got to be much more than that. You know what I mean? How do you know? If you've really seen machlokas of tzaddikim, you know that at that moment you could. It's like the Yismach Moshe began over here. It's the scariest thing in the world.
You feel torn to pieces.
What's that? You feel torn. You mamish feel torn to pieces. You look at everything and you say, anywhere I go, anywhere I choose, forget it. I'm messed up. Either way I choose. I've sat by Gedolim, and I'm sitting by Gedolim, and I've mamish heard them talk down on other tzaddikim, and yet I know that they're Gedolim. So, what is it? Or we're just saying no. The only real Gadol is someone that never, ever, ever, ever has anything not nice to say about any other Gadol. I don't know. But to do, this is like a really, really, that's why I wanted to open with what the Yismach Moshe says. You have to understand, if we were standing there around Korach and Moshe Rabbeinu, we would really be freaking out. What should we do? What should we do? So the Man Shilach says something so strong. Next page. Korach says to Moshe and Aaron, Umadua tisnas'u al kehal Hashem. That's his taina. What does that mean? What does that mean? Umadua tisnas'u al kehal Hashem. Why do you, Moshe and Aaron, think that you're better than us? Why are you the priest and the king? Meaning, why are you Aaron a Kohen? You're the high priest, and Moshe Rabbeinu, you're like the king. Why should it be like that? How does that sound? Holy? No, don't say no because you know the end of the story. You're standing right there while it's happening. How does that sound?
Sounds right.
Either very chutzpahdik, but could be a lot of very holy. Why? Why should it be like this? So look what he says here. The Ishbitzer says, when God chose you to be the head of the Levim, that's what he's saying to Korach, you didn't ask your question then, right? That's what the Ishbitzer says. Korach, you should have said, Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't want to be a Levi because everybody's holy, right? Then it was okay. But what about now? You see, look what he says here. Korach was saying to Aaron, why should you be the high priest? Why should you make yourself above everybody else? So Rabbi Shlomo says, when you are better, like this first person is saying, when you're better than someone else, it's okay. But when somebody else is better than you walk up and you start with the whole civil rights movement, right? Meaning that this is how it is in the world. He's saying, friends, don't kid yourself. The world is like this. I'm allowed to be better than others, but who do you think you are if you're better than I? Right? He's saying, this is, you want to know how to do that birur? Why don't you see? First of all, what was Korach really saying? Was he saying something holy? It could have been holy. You know when it could have been holy? If he would have had the same question when he was given this high status. Mechilo, a Levi just walked in, so we're doing some Levi tikkunim of Levim right now, but you hear what I'm saying. If Korach would have said the same thing when he was chosen to be the Levi, en baya, bring it on. You can't just dish it out when it's comfortable for you. And that's what the Ishbitzer is saying. That could have helped them figure out. And that's really how the Ishbitzer understands where people at the end, Baruch Hashem, didn't fall for Korach's trap because they could have easily asked this question to Korach as well. But now it gets much deeper. Look at the next paragraph. Therefore, the Kotzker Rebbe says on this parsha that two of the most powerful and important characteristic traits a person has to attain is to be ne'eman and tamim. That's how he holds from this parsha. These two things, if you could walk home with this tonight and say, this is what I want, Ribono Shel Olam, help me with this. I need to be ne'eman. I have to have ne'emanut. What's ne'emanut? Don't answer like this, everybody. What's ne'emanut? Loyalty, faithfulness, trustworthy. We're gonna pin it in a second. And tamim. Now that's a harder one. What's tamim? One, maybe straightforward. What else?
Like innocent. Yeah, innocent.
Innocent. What else? Whole. Tam. Shleimut. What else? Pure, utmost, simple. Think of the tam, the third boy at the Seder, right? So he says you have to have ne'eman and tamim. Dafka when it comes to if you want to make the birur, if you want to know what's your derech, like we were talking about last week. If you want to know, you see there's machlokas, all these tzaddikim, don't worry about who's right for a second. You make sure that you have ne'emanut and tmimut. And this is an important thing. Because after last week's shira, I can't even begin to tell you how much chevra have been crying with me the whole week from literally all over the world over this concept of seeing so many different drachim, so many different rebbes, and not finding their derech. As important as it is to find your way, there's no chance in the world that you're going to find mamish what's your way unless you're not making it mamish a priority to attain the level of having ne'emanut, to being ne'eman, and to have Tmimus. I once asked Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg, I told you that when I was recording for one of his projects, so this is a very bizarre thing that, I realize any second I can have with him to ask him anything, I have to pull out the big guns. I'm not going to ask him, when did you start growing your beard? I'm going to ask him, the real heavy stuff. So I remember it's very weird. This is Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg, one of the most intriguing and intense figures I think that exists today. I really do. Biggest Geonim I've ever heard of and seen. And it was his birthday. And we were in the studio and his son brought over a birthday cake. It was very funny. We were having a little birthday party for Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg in a studio in Tel Aviv. And as they're giving out cake, I just leaned into him and said, Rabbi, is it possible to regain Tmimus in this world? Rabbi, is it possible to regain Tmimut in this world and not missing a beat? Okay? It was mamish, everyone's giving around cake. Mazal tov, l'chaim, l'chaim. Rabbi, can you get Tmimus in this world? That's what it was like. And now, anyone else would be like, can we talk about this later? But wait a second. Not missing a beat. He turns to me, he says, the Rebbe Rashab says, he right away went into a whole explanation based on the 5th Lubavitch Rebbe, explaining that it is possible, and he went into a whole thing of how you do it, and it was mind-blowing. It was amazing, and then we all went right back to the cake. It was like, if you're always there, if you're really connected, you're always connected. Like Reb Shlomo said, a real emes yid, you can wake up at 4 a.m. and you say, what's the most important thing in the world? And he says to you right away, Hashem echad u'shmo echad. And he goes right back to sleep. A lot of people, you wake up in the morning, say, what's the most important thing in the world? To get right back to sleep the second, right? But here, a real Eved Hashem that's connected every single second, it's no difference between I'm eating birthday cake or I'm giving a shir or it's Mincha Yom Kippur. Doesn't matter. So I asked him, I was thinking about this for so long, is it possible, we've spoken about this, is it possible to become tamim again? To regain innocence, to regain that pure look at the world, that belief in humanity, the belief in people, the belief in concepts, the belief in the belief in rabbis. That's the hardest thing in the world, to regain belief in tmimus of rabbinic leadership. That's becoming one of the hardest things in the world, to regain innocence and purity towards, wholeheartedly, shlemut, and then being ne'eman, being really loyal to whatever that Rav's derech is. So he said, so anyway, he says, he gave a whole beautiful thing, it's not for now, about how it is possible. So here, the Kotzker Rebbe is saying, you can look for every Rebbe in the world, and you can keep on searching to see who's right, who says the right thing, where's my Shorish Neshama? And he says, you think you can answer the question of where your Shorish Neshama is, unless you're not working on yourself day and night, to have Ne'emanus to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to be Tamim in this world? Who are you kidding? And then you know what happens? It becomes less important afterwards. Which is the right derech? Having a leiv that's ne'eman and tamim becomes the derech. That becomes the real thing in life. So, look back inside, 3rd to bottom paragraph. Therefore, the Kotzker Rebbe says on this parsha, the two of the most powerful and important characteristic traits a person has to attain is to be ne'eman and tamim. Now, in Ba'alosra, God says to Miriam and Aaron that Moshe Rabbeinu is bechol beisi ne'emanhu. He's a faithful servant in my whole house, right? A faithful servant doesn't serve God because it's good or because he feels it's sweet. Faithful means I'm doing it because God said so. I feel like probably the greatest limud zchus on Abba Eben was when he got up in the UN and he shared his opinion as to why we belong in Eretz Yisrael. What did he do? I don't remember. I was minus 30. What do you guys think? What did he do? Anyone know?
I forgot.
He picked up a Tanakh. Picked up a We're so busy with all the justifications for our existence. We're so lost. The representative people, we're so lost. Here he says, you know what a Naaman servant does? He doesn't act, I'm not from because it fits me. I'm not into Shabbos because I figured out a way that it's good for me. I do it because God says so. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu, Reb Shlomo said, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't come to Paro and say, Paro, listen, if you free 2/4, half of the Jews now, and then maybe like another quarter later, another quarter later, it'll work your economy. You'll see some amazing things you never saw about the Egyptian economy. What did Moshe Rabbeinu say to him? Kol Amar Hashem. God says so. And the more we try to get away from that, the more we're not really being Naaman. Why do we wake up in the morning and go to shul and daven? Why do we wake up in the morning and start with Negel Wasser? Because it feels holy? Maybe that's not why a Yid does it. A Yid does it because God says so. Why do I give 1/10 of my tzedakah, of my money to tzedakah? Why? I'm scared to death that if I don't, I'm not going to have money, right? Nah, no one's like that, right? It's because God says so. Like that's really the ikar of everything. That's what it means. B'chol beisi ne'emanu. Moshe Rabbeinu was holding on to because God says so. That's who he was. Look inside. Again, a faithful servant doesn't serve God because it's good or because he feels it's sweet. Faithful means I'm doing it because God says so. Tamim, being whole, means being completely with it. Doing it with every fiber of your being. Whole means that I'm so completely given to whatever God will say. It's when I'm so completely given to God, whatever God says will be okay with me. Now, have you ever had one moment of davening, of Shmona Esrei, one bracha out of the 18 brachas that were said with utmost tmimus, that every single word of the bracha was fully said, and that you fully believed it because God says so? Take your next Shmona Esrei. Catch yourself. Just one of the brachas. Just one of them. And see how much tmimus is here. How much am I saying the whole thing? Fully. Now we'll understand what Korach. You see, Korach wanted to serve God, but he mamish wanted to be the holiest. Aaron was ready to serve God, even if he was the lowest. What does that mean, the lowest? When he says here that Aaron was ready to serve God, even if he was the lowest, what does that mean by the lowest? Not if he was like the lowest criminal. It means even if he wasn't Aaron a Kohen. Even if he was, what's that?
Regular.
Yeah, anything. Aaron, it didn't matter to him. It happened to be that God says so. You're a Kohen. And by Aaron we even say Aaron Asher Bachar Bo. God chose him for this. So again, Aaron was.
Can I ask him? When he says because he mamish wanted to be the holiest, did he want to be the holiest or did he wanted to be holier than thou? Like, did he want to be the holiest he could be, or did he want to be the one who is known as the holiest?
Maybe he believed, like the pathological liars truly believe what they say. Like, you can't convince them, right? They really believe what they're saying, right? So, did he believe that he wanted to be the holiest? Yes. Did he really want to be the holiest in the world? Maybe, but what he didn't want was to accept the status that God gave him. Now, I want to be careful what I said right now, especially after the Yismach Moshe and the Chos of Lublin. I'm not calling Korach a pathological liar.
No, I am.
Okay. Aaron was ready to serve God even if he was the lowest. He didn't care. And therefore he was really the holiest. Same with Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu was chosen to go up to Mount Sinai because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to go up to Mount Sinai. Remember? He's arguing with the Ribono Shel Olam. No, send Aaron. It shouldn't be me. And then the Midrash says he was begging Hashem, no, send Eliyahu Hanavi. He just didn't want it to be him. And then God says, do you see now why I want it to be you? Have you proven it to yourself enough why I, God, am choosing you? A human being wants to see someone that feels like he's fit for the job. You have self-confidence? I sure do. I can do it. It's me. Good, you got the job. It's not how it works with the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shalom sees people that don't think that they're worthy. And therefore he says, this is exactly why I'm choosing you for the job. By Korach, it mamish wasn't like this. To a certain extent, how bad does it smell from Korach that he says, really, I could be the Kohen Gadol too. People with good noses started to smell that when they were around Korach. He's saying that he could be the Kohen Gadol? Yeah, he's hiding it in the name of everyone's holy. But come on. Whoever thinks like that is already out of the picture. You know what Moshe Rabbeinu felt on Mount Sinai? If God would have chosen somebody else, he would have been just as happy. Absolutely, meaning he, Moshe, would have been just as happy. Just as happy. Israel should know what God has to say. That's the most important thing to Moshe Rabbeinu. By the way, look in the Kedushas Levi this Shabbos. He says that about Korach, there's two types of tzaddikim in the world. One, they both want goodness and holiness to happen. But you know what the difference between them is? Listen to this, it's an important thing. One tzaddik says, Kedusha has to take place, and it needs to be me that does it. The other tzaddik says, Kedusha needs to take place in the world. And I'm just so desperate that it happens, I don't care how. That's how Rabbi Yitzchak divides between Korach and Moshe and Aaron. That's exactly it, and it's really the whole point of this last paragraph. That's how Korach says. I always say for musicians when they hear, there's an opportunity to go to some far out village or some crazy festival where there's going to be a lot of lost Yidlach there, and you could have a slot there to do a show that really will turn them on to the Ribono Shel Olam, right? How much are you davening that slot should be filled and Kedusha takes place, as opposed to, I need to be the one that does that slot, right? How happy are you if the slot is taken care of and people's heart will be touched, even if it's not you? I say this sometimes when I go to yeshivas, and I speak to the Rabbanim in certain post-high school programs. How happy are you when you weren't chosen by a certain top Talmid Chacham student that's coming from America or whatever, but as long as they found a place to learn in Eretz Yisrael. So of course everyone says, the highest in the world. Of course. It's not a simple thing. It's a very, very high level. You're in a community, you see there's a few shuls around you, you see someone that moves to the community and you want him to be on fire. You really want him to be on your fire. Right? You really want him to talk about a birur, a sifting in the character. We're not talking about, I don't want to be a Russia. We're talking about holy versus holier, right? It's a very holy thing to want someone to have Kedusha. It's a much holier thing to not care if you're the cause of him having Kedusha in his life, but that you just care that he gets it. That is the whole point of tonight so far. Since, third line from the bottom, since Moshe was the only one who just wanted that God should tell him what it is, and it didn't matter to him, therefore he was the only one who was chosen. The other ones, it really mattered to them if it was them or someone else. Now, look. What?
I was saying that the problem was it did matter to Korach that it was Korach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And same like
by Moshe Rabbeinu, he just mattered. It mattered to him that God should speak. He wanted Am Yisrael to be touched. But from the get-go, from the burning bush, you see the character. He doesn't care who it is. Now the ending. Look at this. And this is how you achieve ne'emanut and tmimut. Okay? Look at how he ends off here. The moment it matters to you if it's you or somebody else, you cannot go up to Mount Sinai. What does that mean? I almost think what he's saying is, you can't really be a teacher in Am Yisrael You can't bring Har Sinai, you can't bring the Torah to people if to you it really matters if it's you that's darshaning as opposed to somebody else. So again, the moment it matters to you if it's you or somebody else, you cannot go up to Mount Sinai. You're not Moshe. You have no chedek with Moshe Rabbeinu. You cannot be a high priest. Now he's saying you can't be Aaron HaKohen or a leader unless it doesn't matter to you who it is. Only then it could be you. Do you hear how profound that statement is? This is, I have to tell you, as a musician and as a teacher, this paragraph is paralyzing. It's absolutely paralyzing. I'm being straight up honest right now. This last paragraph, these words, especially the last sentence, you cannot be a high priest, I'm a Kohen too, right? You cannot be a high priest or a leader unless it doesn't matter to you who it is that's doing big things in the world. As long as what? Big things are happening. And then he says, only then, when you really don't care, and you just want Kedusha to happen, only then, it could be you. See, it's the opposite of the way big achievements take place in the world that we grew up in. Why? Because the world that we grew up in, from a young age, it could be you dream big, it could be you could work yourself up to the highest so that you stand on top. That's not Yiddish chinuch. Yiddish chinuch is, you could reach the level that you really don't care, but that you really just want Hashem's word to reach the whole world. You could reach that level. You could reach that level, and then, when you work yourself up to really not care, that you are zocheh l'te'ilah, that it's done through you, only then it could be you. Why? Because you've gone through birur and you're living in a state of bitul. You're living in a state of complete self-annihilation. Because then it really isn't about you. When I look around Am Yisrael today, and I'm thinking, how many teachers need to learn this last paragraph?
And politicians.
Oh, I've given that. That's already. You're already giving Kav Schus that there's a chance.
Doesn't that contradict a little bit with the idea of that, like, in a place where there isn't someone, you should stand up to be that
No,
person?
absolutely not. Because on the contrary, it actually strengthens it. Because do you think an ish in that context means someone that is saying kochi ve'otzem yadi? No. La'efech. La'efech, it even strengthens it. The ish, I was once in a shul, I couldn't believe it. On a Friday night, the Rav that was with strong davening, then it was in Yerushalayim years ago, and then we finished Hashem right before Kegavna, when they were going to give a drasha. So it took the Rav that was going to speak, give a drasha, it took him a minute to get to the shtender. So somehow someone just ran up to the shtender and started giving over a vort. So afterwards, the Rav that was going to speak asked the guy, said, what's going on here? He says, look, it says, Makom she'ein ish, heya ish. So I'm hoping that, he didn't mean, I saw who was about to speak, and that's not, that's not an ish, so I have to be an ish, I don't think it was that, but I'm saying some people would love, they're just waiting for the moment of, can I do it? Is there anyone here? Can I do it? But the real Makom she'ein ish is really what I think this is.
Maybe it depends who you're worshiping, yourself or Hashem.
Of course. This is the whole, of course, that's the pshat, remez, drash, and sod of this whole piece. But again, you cannot be a high priest or a leader unless it doesn't matter to you who it is. Meaning, unless it doesn't matter to you who is privileged to bring Kedusha into the world. As long as what? As long as Kedusha happens. That's what I care about. And then, when that becomes the most important thing for me, then it could be you. that has the privilege to carry out God's word. Startling. There's so many people that think they're carrying God's word in the world without ever working through a Torah like this. Ever. And they really believe, like Korach, that this is B'Shem Hashem Tzvakos. They believe in the name of
people like that cannot lashpia on people? Because obviously this would be wonderful, and this would be ideal. But the fact is that there are people who think of themselves Ra'oi and give over things. And they're not having some effect on other people, even though they're not in the best place. I mean, is it...
This shir isn't about good or bad.
No.
This shir is about holy versus
Holier.
and holier.
So it's still doable, just not a malamad that would be the best.
Who would you rather receive from?
The question is, am I receiving? If I'm receiving from both, and I don't know.
I'm not saying. I'm asking. Who would you rather receive from? Would you rather receive from someone that knows he's very talented, so he can give over good Torahs, or would you rather receive from someone who couldn't care, who is the one that's mashpia on you, unless he cares about what? That you're mushpat.
Well, that's wonderful, because those are the people that you actually connect to what they're giving over, because they're giving it over with that passion because it's just there, but it's rare.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to argue on that. I'm not going to argue on that. But we learned the whole Torah 2 years. I'm sure you were there about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, on Parshat Matot, and it was called Desperate Soul Masters. I don't know if you remember it. It was on Parshat Matot, that the real Rashi Matot, who were the heads of tribes? These type of people. They were desperate that you were touched by Hashem. And it didn't matter to them if it was them or someone else. Therefore, they were chosen to be the Rashi Matot. So again, are you receiving anything from someone who is b'makom she'ein ish heya ish? Of course you are. Korach was doing a lot of holy things his whole life. But then there's a birur at the end. Now we're pushing you. It's true what you're saying. But now we're done with college. Now it's already ultimate. This year is not about. It's about ideal. It's about ideal situations. It's about the ultimate. It's about the ultimate. I want to learn Torah from someone who could care. I'll tell you why it's a little bit personal for me. Because after last week's shir, one of the comments that I got from someone was absolutely bashing one of my Rabbeim that he is kavod hungry. Ouch. Yeah, big time. So, I didn't think about that over here. Like, while I was working on this, I'm saying now I'm thinking about wow, okay, I see why this is it, because how could I learn, even if it's the highest Torahs in the world, how could I consciously learn from someone who might be kavod hungry? Even if they tell me the highest teachings in the world. Chas v'shalom, right? So we're really talking about an ideal world, but who's stopping us from thinking that this is attainable? And it shouldn't, by the way, now, I'm not saying, okay, now every time you go to a shir, or every time you go and hear music, or every time you receive influence from someone, check to see if they feel they're on the level or not. Right? You'll lose your mind. No, you'll lose your mind. But again, you know what? That's not important. You know why? You know what's important? Ne'emanut and tmimut is important. Forget about where they're holding. Make sure that with the word of the Ribono Shel Olam, that's where you're holding. And when that becomes more important to you than where are they holding, everything changes. These questions aren't even relevant because who cares? It doesn't even matter. I'm directly linked with the Ratzon HaElyon. It doesn't even matter. You had a question, so yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So I was just thinking about David and Goliath. Just feel like David really stepped up there and felt like he was the one to go and fight Goliath. Like, it wasn't like he waited for people to tell him. Like, there were a lot of people, like, we don't really know the situation. Like,
right.
I feel like he knew who he was, and like he stepped up and he did it.
So you're saying that contradicts what we were
I
saying.
feel like confidence in yourself, and like I feel like, I don't know, maybe it fits in. I can see how it does fit in, but at the same time, like having like real confidence in yourself that you are able to do this and like you can accomplish. And like, what if there are a million people in the room, but like there's potential that like someone knows they're the best fit for that, or they know.
You could have utmost confidence and think that you're the best fit for it. But if that overweighs the notion of, I don't care who does it, I just want Kedusha to be done, I don't care who kills Goliath, I just want Goliath to be killed, then you're the one that can do it. It doesn't, it's a lo soter. It doesn't contradict at all. Confidence here is not a stira to feeling that you just want some Kedusha to happen in the world.
Yeah, but how do you build up yourself that you feel like you're someone who can add Kedusha to the world if your goal is to just make sure there is Kedusha in the world?
Isn't that beautiful, you just said? That's the most beautiful thing I ever heard. No. This is great. This is perfect. What you just said is perfect. It's actually the clearest thing we said so far tonight. In my opinion. Say again, do you remember what you just said or not so much? I'm putting you on the spot.
Because
How do you know? I'm just saying what I got from what you said right now. How could someone work on themselves so much and build themselves the confidence until they reach the level of they don't care if it's them or not? That's what this whole thing is about. You could have all the confidence, you could be the best at what you do. You could work on a certain talent and strive to perfect it. But that's not the bottom line. That's not what's most important. What's most important is that whatever talent I have, and it can help the world, whoever needs to be helped should be helped. If the Ribono Shel Olam chooses me to do it, that's awesome. If he chooses someone else to touch someone's neshama, that's just as awesome.
how do you stop yourself from like being jealous of other people? I'm on your phone, you walk around, you see people learning on the bench there.
That's already,
I just have this image in my mind when I was a young mother of my first child, and I, of course, was the best mother in the world, and certainly the best mother for him. And there was one day that I could not get him to stop crying, and my mother-in-law came over, and she took him, and he just stopped crying. I was furious. I was livid. I felt like nothing. I felt so bad. And then it took a while, like hopefully not too many months, but it took a while to be able to say, thank God my son's not crying, and not like he's not in pain now. He's not in distress now, rather than she's being the one who's comforting.
I have to just end with just complimenting what you just said, and we'll end with this. I wanted to kill Tiferet's Ganenet when she was 2. One day Tiferet comes home, and this Ganenet was the holiest. She comes home, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokei. Chutzpah. Who gave the reshut? Remember? I mean, never forget this. When she came home from Gan Shula one day, sang a bracha. I wanted to kill her. And I had to work on myself so much. I said, Ribono Shel Olam, she knows, whatever. This is a little bit extreme, what I'm saying right now, but it's.
We're all
we're all in it, But you know what? When I really, I love, it's a very high thing, bichlal, that you want to be the person to teach your child. But it's even higher that you just want your child to have whatever it needs. It doesn't matter. And please, and then when that happens, you're blessed to be the one to give your child everything. Then you could be the one.
There's another level too where someone has to stand up to the plate. You can't just be holding back and waiting for someone else.
No. Again, this point we're drilling. We're always going. I feel like we're just doing this again. You have to stand up to the plate when no one else is doing something. That's true, but if it's about you that's standing up to the plate, Korach, smells bad. If it's not about you and you just want a plate to be stood up onto, Moshe Aaron. That's the birur. This is one of the most important birurim. This is how we go one step closer to Eretz Yisrael. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see you next week.